Salute BookTube, welcome to my channel. We're in the middle of October, well into the heart of the autumn, or the fall as the North Americans call it. Where I'm based, and for those who don't know, I'm based in the United Arab Emirates in the heart of the Middle East. And over here, the autumn doesn't really exist as a season. There's no foliage. There's no trees for leaves to fall. This is Deserta Arabia. It's a very barren land. That being said, it does get much cooler, and it's certainly getting cooler, the weather. It's brutally hot summers, and then it's very pleasant winters, but there's really nothing in between. Well, there is now, which is hot in the daytime and then pleasant in the evening. So that's a good thing. I just went for a run because the weather's much better, and now I took a shower, and then now I'm here to discuss books. And what I wanted to discuss here was, or what I wanted to show today is a book haul. I went book shopping. I went book shopping over a span of days, and I've been accumulating books, and I've just been looking for a right time to post this on BookTube, to make videos and show you what I got. But I think I overbought. I bought a little bit too much. But that being said, the reason I do that, and people who are regulars of my show, of my channel, will know the reasons. I've mentioned it before. Where I'm at, there's about 3 used bookstores in the entire country. Just only 3 that I know of, and I'm pretty bookish. I've looked around. It's only 3, at least English language used bookstores in my city and in neighboring cities. So therefore, there's not that many. And if I don't patronize these used bookstores, there's a very good chance that they might struggle, and they might have to close down. And if they close down, then there's going to be one less bookstore. And for that reason, I usually go book shopping, and I tend to go a little bit overboard. I try to buy as much as possible to support the bookstores as much as possible, and I try to go regularly to keep them afloat, basically. As well, not just the used bookstores, but the library system here isn't as I don't know what the word is, robust. It's not as large as maybe North America or even Europe. There are libraries, but first of all, they focus on Arabic language books, so that'll be the majority of the books in the library. So the English selection will be much less. And then again, it's not as robust or as large as some of the European or North American libraries, and there's very little of the interlibrary loan system. Just doesn't exist much in this part of the world. So used bookstores are very sparse. Public libraries are few and far between, so that's why I go and buy a lot of books. I do a lot of used book shopping, and it's good for the channel because I get to do a book haul. But what I'm trying to say is I'm not doing this to clout chase or to get subscribers or to just, these books in the back aren't fake. I actually intend to read these books. And again, I do it to support the bookstores. Although this time I went a little bit overboard. So what I think I'm going to do is split up this book haul, this autumn book haul, into different videos. I just don't know how many parts this is going to be. I tried to split the books up and try to make it like into a narrative, into subject matter. I'm thinking this might be a 4-part, maybe even 5-part series. But also, I can make them less, but then it's going to be longer videos, and maybe I'll do more shorter videos. I don't know, let's see. We'll find out. But like I was saying, I had split them into sort of subject matters to try to make the video flow. I didn't want to just make it random. So I tried to divide them as much as possible into something that'll be exciting for you to watch. So this first batch, I'd like to call it books influenced by BookTube. And since I've been on BookTube, I've met a lot of people, met them mostly digitally, but got to know a lot of people. Some of them are booktubers who make videos, of course, and others are commenters, and then there's other booktubers who I just watch. And all of them, they've inspired my reading. They've diversified my reading. For those who don't know, and it's in my channel description, I read mostly nonfiction. My favorite subject is history. I like biographies as well. Biographies, autobiographies, but that's the gist of my reading. Um, but since I've been on BookTube, I've been seeing a very diverse group of readers of different types of genres and subgenres. And so that's also affected my used book shopping. I've tried to look at things which in the past I wouldn't have looked. That being said, the majority of the books are still nonfiction, but there's a few fiction sprinkled around. And yeah, well, I hope you enjoy it. Because it's been 6 minutes and I still haven't started with the books. So maybe I should start. So like I said, this first batch is influenced by BookTube and booktubers and commenters on my channel and in other channels and just BookTube in general. The first thing you notice when you're on BookTube is the large number of science fiction readers, and it's incredible. Myself, I'm not a science fiction reader. I've read the first couple of Dune books, Frank Herbert's Dune. I've read some of the Edgar Rice Burroughs Barsoom novels, but I haven't really gone much further than that. And I should give it a chance because the amount of booktubers and science fiction readers, and the passion and just the dedication they have to science fiction, and the excitement when they talk about it. It's really something. I don't know. I'd like to feel for myself. Maybe I'll have the same feelings if I was a bit more open-minded and read more science fiction. So the first book I want to show this is the Oxford Very Short Introductions. This is by David Seed. It's a very short introduction of science fiction. So like I said, I want to start getting into a bit of science fiction, but I'm a bit OCD. I like to if I'm going to start reading science fiction with a blank sheet, or just a blank sheet, I'd like to do it in an organized way. I don't know, this a very short introduction to science fiction. It is really short, and it's very small, pocket sized. I don't know if this goes in order. What's the word? I'm blanking. Why is the word escaping me? In order of dates, like from the oldest science fiction to the newest. What's the word? I completely blanked. It's really late here where I'm filming, but I don't know if it's that or it goes by topics. I don't know how this is organized, but I think this will help me. Chronological, that's the word, chronological. Is it in chronological order from the earliest science fiction to more recent, or is it the table of contents isn't very helpful, but it's either chronological or it's by like subject, like space or alien encounter. I don't know how this is organized, but it'll help me get started into science fiction. Although again, I think when I had mentioned that when I had mentioned I wanted to get into science fiction, Angelina, whose channel Books Do Things to Me, told me no, don't, because she doesn't read much history and she wants to participate in Historathon in 2026. She's another booktuber based in Europe, in Slovenia. And I said, well, if you're going to do Historathon, I'll do science fiction reading, because she's a science fiction reader, I think, mainly. Her favorite genre is science fiction. So I said, if you're going to do Historathon, I'll do science fiction in 2026. But she's like, no. I think that there's too many science fiction booktubers, and she doesn't want me to join. I think she enjoys a bit of a little different on my channel. It's more history and nonfiction. But I don't know. Maybe I want to get into science fiction. That's why I picked that one up. And then speaking of booktubers and influences, the science fiction, while I was at the used bookstore, I found in the discount bin 2 paperbacks. This author was recommended to me by a commenter. Um who if you some my previous videos I had discussed, I had read Arnold Schwarzenegger's autobiography. It's called Total Recall, and the autobiography is named after the movie Total Recall, which starred Arnold Schwarzenegger, and that movie was based on a Philip K. Dick science fiction novel, which name escapes me. But the author's name, Philip K. Dick, stayed in my mind, and again, because I'm possibly dabbling in science fiction in 2026, I found these two in the discount bin, and I said I'll take them. They were like almost free. They're not in the best condition. Maybe I can get one more reading out of them. And it is Philip K. Dick. One is called The Crack in Space. I don't know how popular or how known this is. I'm a complete newbie when it comes to science fiction. And then the other one is also by Philip K. Dick, and it's Lies Inc. Very nice covers. These science fiction books have really nice covers. So again, I don't know what these are about. I don't know how popular these are. I don't think these are his most popular books. But the name came to me. I found it in the bargain bin. I said, I'll take it. This is a tentative start to creating a science fiction shelf, which who knows, might grow, might not grow, who knows. So that's that. The other booktube event the event that was on my mind while I was book shopping was Shake Timber, which was in September, and that's a booktube event where you are encouraged to read Shakespeare. Again, if you watched my previous videos, I did a lot of discussing of the four Shakespeare plays that I read: The Tempest, As You Like It, Midsummer Night's Dream, and Othello. You can watch the videos if you like, but again, Shakespeare was on the mind. And the editions that I read were really poor. There were poor editions that I picked up, again, from a bargain discount bin, and they were really bad quality, bad notes, bad intro, bad material. So I decided that if going forward reading Shakespeare, I'm going to try to read better editions. One of them, which was recommended by some booktubers, just watching booktubers, was the Signet Classics of the Shakespeare. So I found these two. This one is King Lear, and the other one is Antony and Cleopatra. Both of them are Signet. This one is not in very good condition. It's all torn up. It's torn up in the back, but still, I decided to take it again to support the bookstores, support the local bookstores. This one's got a student's name. I believe it's a student school, like schools. Yeah, a student from school, most likely high schools, put in his or her name. I think it's a girl. But anyway, I found these two. Sorry, the second one is Antony and Cleopatra. I don't know if I mentioned it. This was also recommended to me by another booktuber, JJ, the bookworm blacksmith. She told me you should read the histories. Of course, I do want to eventually get to the Shakespeare histories. So I'll be excited to read this. I read Julius Caesar in high school because I was forced to. But Antony and Cleopatra will be interesting. King Lear, of course, is very... What I hear is that the arguments for the greatest Shakespeare is between this... Is it between this and Macbeth? Or this and Hamlet? It's this or Macbeth. And I think different periods of history, it's swung back and forth. I think Macbeth has recently been more popular, but this is, I think, one of Shakespeare's, or what they say. I haven't read it. It's one of his masterpieces, which is saying a lot. But again, it's quite big. It's bigger than the Antony and Cleopatra. So I'll be interested to read Shakespeare in a nice version. And sticking with the Shakespeare theme, so those were Signet Classics. I also found Arden Shakespeare editions. One of them is I picked up is Romeo and Juliet. Cover there, you can see it's a man and a woman caressing, I guess, or very intimate. But Romeo and Juliet, the movie, and everybody has read. I read Romeo and Juliet by force at school. so I didn't really appreciate it. And I think everybody's knows the basic story of Romeo and Juliet. The two cross star lovers. Is that the word? It's very popular. It's been adapted to different cultures and how it ends and the tragedy. Blah blah blah. Everybody knows it. I don't think I'm ruining anything. But how many? Well, I can't speak for everybody, but for me, I haven't actually sat down and read Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. So this Arden edition, nice edition, almost like new. It has a big introduction. It's got the full notes. I'll be excited to read this. Maybe next Shakespeare or sooner, maybe perhaps. Oops, I fell on the floor. The other Arden Shakespeare I got is King Henry VI, Part 3. Now, previously I purchased King Henry VI, Part 1, and then I went and I thought I had purchased King Henry VI, Part 2. But it seems when I was at the bookstore, I saw it upside down, or I didn't focus well enough. It wasn't actually King Henry or King Henry VI Part 2. It was King Henry the Fourth. So Shakespeare has Henry the Fourth and he has Henry the Sixth, and I misread the Roman numerals. So I'm not even sure which ones I have now. I have they're mixed up, but I'm slowly collecting them. I didn't think I had this one, and it was right next to the Romeo and Juliet, and then again. It's more of his history, Shakespeare's history, history plays, history stories. So I'll be glad, excited to read this because I really do want to get stuck into his history plays. So those are the Shakespeare inspired by BookTube and Shakestember this past month or last month in September. Another BookTube inspired purchase is this book. It's by Elizabeth Drayson, and it's The Moor's Last Stand. And the subtitle is How 7 Centuries of Muslim Rule in Spain Came to an End. This was influenced by another channel on BookTube. I'll link his channel. It's the channel's name is Shelf Learner. And he recently posted a video, and he showed his library of books related to the Moors and related to Islamic Spain and Andalusia and that whole era and that whole region of the world. So I was thinking of that when I saw this, and I said, well, I should pick this up. Again, the subtitle here is How 7 Centuries of Muslim Rule Came to an End. So this is a small book, and it's, I think, dealing with the end of the Moorish control of Spain. They were eventually kicked out by Spanish Catholic counteroffensive. So this is the end. This isn't about, because here it says 7 centuries. That's 700 years of Islamic control of Andalusia. The question is there a book about the beginnings of the of Muslim rule in Spain? And then what happened in those 700 years? And that's not a short period of history. 700 years is a long, long time. The question is, what happened between the beginning of Muslim control of Spain and the end? That 700 years in between. If they were in control of Spain for 700 years, they were doing something right. And they must have been at least partially accepted or acceptable to the local population. I think at the end it started to fragment, and that's what led to the Reconquista, the reconquering. That's the word I was looking for. The reconquering of Spain by Christian Spain. But again, that period, you can't control an area for 700 years without doing at least something right. So it's changed lately. I mean, historically, the Western or European and Western historians tended to look at the Moors as bad for Spain. But again, 700 years, they must have done something right. So I think perceptions of more Spain are changing, and the tolerance that was there is becoming is being studied more and being researched more. Anyway, so that's on the Moors again. Shelf Learner. I'll link to this channel below. The next couple of books are also inspired by another booktuber. I already mentioned her, JJ, the bookworm blacksmith. I'll link to her channel as well. And it's also from some of my commenters are also from Michigan. JJ is from Western Michigan, so I don't know how relevant this is to her, but it's within the general area. This book is called Fins, and the subtitle is Harley Earl, The Rise of General Motors and the Glory Days of Detroit. And the author is William Knodelsetter. William Knodelsetter. Knodelsetter. Anyway, William K. Fins. And that's, you can see the car on the cover. I don't really know much. Here, the back copy says, tells the story of Harley Earl as a classic American family saga beginning in the Michigan pine forests in the decade after the Civil War, crossing the Great Plains on wooden spoke wheels of a covered wagon and settling at the turn of the century in a tiny dirt village called Hollywood. Hired by General Motors in the middle of the Roaring '20s, Harley introduced art and color into rigid mechanics of mass auto manufacturing in Detroit. And for the next 30 years operated as a kind of combination Steve Jobs and Tom Ford of his time. I'm just reading, I didn't read all of it, I'm just reading parts just to give you an idea. But JJ and some of my other commenters are from Michigan, so maybe this kind of, they inspired me. Here it says the glory days of the glory days of Detroit. That part's interesting too. My generation and people younger, if you told them name the top 5 cities in the U.S. in the United States, they'd say New York, they'll say Los Angeles. Nowadays, maybe they'll say Miami, maybe other sort of southern Sun Belt states might make it. But if you had asked maybe my parents' generation or the older generations, if you asked them to name the top 5, most likely Detroit would be there. Detroit was the workhorse of America. It was very influential, and it was considered again, it was the glory days. It was considered a major American metropolis. Of course, that's changed. There's all this Rust Belt, talk of Rust Belt, etc. I don't know if it'll be covered here, but the author, William Knodelsetter, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, is a New York Times bestselling author of Bitter Brew, The Rise and Fall of Anheuser-Busch and America's Kings of Beer, as well as the critically acclaimed Stiffed, A True Story of MCA, the Music Business and the Mafia. His book, I'm Dying Up Here, Heartbreak and High Times in Stand-Up Comedy's Golden Era, is the basis for the Showtime series of the same name. He lives in California. So he writes about American business, American culture, that kind of stuff. So exciting, Michigan-inspired reading or book purchase. The other one also inspired specifically by JJ at the Bookworm Blacksmith. This is by David Benjamin, and it's Sumo. A Thinking Fan's Guide to Japan's National Sport. Now, JJ had posted a video on her channel. I'll link to her channel definitely in the description. Maybe I'll link to the video as well. I'll link to the video where she asked me what video would you, because I made a video about swords, because she does forging swords and steel, etc. So I made a video about Arabian swords and daggers, and then she said, "Well, let me return the favor." So I told her, make a video about Michigan. So I might link her video to Michigan for this, and then for this I'll link her sumo videos, or at least, at the very least, I'll link her channel. She made a video discussing her newfound passion for sumo, and so. When I saw this at the bookstore, I said, "Wow, wait! I just saw a video. I just saw JJ discussing this, and so I thought I'd pick it up." Um, and this book is a fresh and funny introduction to the fascinating world of sumo, Japan's national sport. I already got a fresh, well, this is fresh and funny introduction, so I don't know how serious this will be. It might be a bit, I don't know, maybe comedic, but we got a fresh introduction by JJ, but it was on my mind. I saw it at the used bookstore. I wouldn't have got it if it wasn't for JJ and BookTube, so because she made that video, I decided to pick it up, uh, and I'll give it a read. JJ actually has videos of her actually some clips of her actually sumo fighting, which is very very interesting. Uh, yeah. So it says author David Benjamin reveals sumo to be an action-packed sport populated by genuine athletes who employ clever strategies and techniques to overcome their gargantuan opponents. Gargantuan opponent. Yeah, that's what JJ said in her video. It's not just you don't just like collide and then just try to push their strategies, and you got to be a bit. It's a sport. It's definitely a sport. You need athleticism. And anyway, I'll read about sumo and I'll give you more pointers. So we're coming now to 27 minutes. Shall we continue for the last? We'll do. I don't want to split this one up, so let's just continue, and I'll try to go a little bit quicker. This next book, again, this one was inspired by the book I read last month, which was about Ferdinand Magellan, the first man, well, him and his crew, or that we know of, that circumnavigated the globe. He started his trip in Spain, and he went across the Atlantic to South America, under or below the what became the Magellan Straits, the Cape at the south of South America, then right across the Pacific until he reached the Indies, the East Indies, what became Indonesia, and then continued. His crew would continue back to Spain, a whole circumnavigation. When they had crossed South America and then entered into the Pacific, they were stuck. Nobody knew the Pacific. They didn't know how big it was. And eventually they were stuck for days and days and weeks and months. I think it was 3 months they were on the Pacific, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was 3 months until they hit land. And the first island they hit was the island that became Guam, tiny island in the middle of the Pacific. And Guam was populated. There were people there. It wasn't this deserted island in the middle of the Pacific. And so anyway, the book of Magellan talks about the contact between the Europeans and the natives of Guam. It wasn't a very happy story, but anyway, the point that these islands were actually inhabited was interesting to me. So when I saw this book, it's by Thor Heyerdahl, and it's the Kon-Tiki expedition. And this is actually the second book by Thor Heyerdahl that I have. I think is he Swedish, or he's a Scandinavian sort of explorer and writer, like travel writer. He has another book I have is called In the Footsteps of Adam. And what Heyerdahl, I think what he specializes in is very early sailing. He tries to recreate ancient sailing vessels and try to understand how the ancients were able to sail the high seas. And this specific book, the Kon-Tiki expedition, he tries to discover how was it possible for those Polynesian peoples to sail into these very, very isolated islands in the middle of the Pacific and start colonies, basically. And I think here he tries to prove that he was able to use this very rudimentary sailing vessel to cross from the Pacific, I think, to, I don't know where it starts. Uh, but like I said, basically how the ancients, how the earliest Polynesians were able to sail on this vast Pacific Ocean and to populate many of the islands, Guam or Fiji or Hawaii, or there's Micronesia. There's so many of them. So this was again on the mind, and I picked it up. Um, Next book I picked up, again, influenced by my reading for BookTube. I've been reading a lot of British royalty books about the Windsors, and now for Historathon, and we're in October. It's Victober. I've been reading some Queen Victoria biographies and Victorian era histories of the Victorian era. So British royalty were on my mind, and this book came really well recommended by Steve Donahue on his channel. This is King Edward VIII by Philip Ziegler. This is the famous King Edward who abdicated from the throne to marry the woman that he loves, an American divorcee, which was unacceptable to the British establishment, or I think the British Church, the Anglican Church. So this is his story. I think this is the authorized, the official biography, but I heard it's really good. So when I saw it at the used bookstore, I grabbed it. Yeah, again, somebody who was destined to be king but gave it all away, gave it up all the way. I think he didn't really want to be king. I don't think he enjoyed the responsibilities. But again, I heard this is really good. I hope it is. I'll read it and I'll let you know. And then a few more books. I want to wrap this up as quickly as possible. This one, again, in Historathon, the last quarter of Historathon, I read a book called Mayflower by Nathaniel Philbrick, and that was about the pilgrims who arrived in Massachusetts and started the Plymouth colony and started to settle New England, and the whole story of how it started on peaceful terms with the natives, and then just digressed into a bloody war between the settlers and the natives. So that book is a much more modern one. This one I found, and I think it's an older book. What year is this from? It's probably dated, but I'd like to compare. Yeah, cover 1958. So this is the same story, but it's the 1958 version. It's called Flinthawk and Tomahawk. New England in King Philip's War. I think Flinthawk is the gun that the Puritans had, the weapon, and then Tomahawk is the native weapon, and then it's New England in King Philip's War. Now I never knew King Philip. I thought it was some kind of French king who the English were fighting. No, King Philip was a native chieftain who fought the Massachusetts settlers, and the settlers he had a very I don't remember his original name, but the settlers just called him Philip, so he became King Philip. This is by Douglas Edward Leach. So the Mayflower book I read by Nathaniel Philbrick, I don't have it anymore. I've given it away already. I'd show it if I had it. It was much more recent, and he tried to be fair. He tried to look at it from the perspective of the native, from the indigenous peoples of Massachusetts. This is older, so it might not. I don't know. It will be interesting to compare a more recent telling of that story with an older one from the 50s, the late 1950s. So that'll be exciting. I find that exciting. A few more books. So many tags. I've been tagged by booktubers here, and a lot of them are related to your earliest book tag. What was the earliest books you read? And I've always shown Roald Dahl, because I went to an English, like a British primary school, so Roald Dahl was big. So I still have a lot of my childhood books. Again, if you see my previous videos, I show them. I saw this at the bookstore, and I thought, why not? Why not go for it? It's an anthology of Roald Dahl. It's Boy, and the other one is Going Solo. And I don't recall. I think Boy is the story of Roald Dahl's very own boyhood. So this isn't really his fiction. This is more of his like life story. It's more nonfiction, including tales of sweet shops and chocolate, i.e., Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Mean Old Ladies, which I think is the witches, and The Great Mouse Plot. I don't remember what that is. And then Going Solo tells of how, when he grew up, Roald Dahl left England for Africa, and later went flying for the Royal Air Force. See where Roald Dahl got all his wonderful ideas for stories before he became the world's #1 storyteller. I think I've read those. I've read Going Solo. I don't think I still have it, but I remember it from my childhood. Because Roald Dahl was famous, he flew in the Middle East in the First World War, I believe, the First World War. Yeah, the famous photo he took of the Ark of Ctesiphon, but was it first? It must have been. Well, actually, could be between the wars. Could have been Second World War. I think Second World War makes more sense. I'm not sure. I'll read it anyway, and I'll see again some nostalgia pick, inspired by BookTube. And then two more small histories. One, I've been reading again. If you see my previous videos, this past year, I've been doing a reading project about books I have on the Caucasus region of Asia/Europe, or the border, the line between Europe and Asia. And the Caucasus region is pretty much sandwiched between the Middle East, between Turkey and Iran to the south, and to the north by Russia and European Russia. So it's a very isolated, but very potential flashpoint in world geopolitics. So I've been reading a lot of books about that, and a lot of the books deals with Russia. And so Russia has been on my mind a lot. Of course, Angelina, who also I'll link below, who is of Russian origin. So that also had kept Russia in my mind. And I found these books are becoming a bit, they're becoming popular. It's a short history of a series, and this is a short history of Russia by Mark Galeotti. And the subtitle is How to Understand the World's Most Complex Nation. It's certainly a complex nation. Again, this is a short history, very small. I've got large books that are actually right here about Russia. This one, which is still in its plastic covering, is Catherine the Great and Potemkin by Simon Sebag Montefiore. This is the same author, the Romanovs. They're right here, right below me. Russia and the Revolution, 1890 to 1928. There's Vladimir Lenin, the great man himself. What else do we have? Biography of Catherine the Great. So I do have much larger books about Russia, but I saw this one and it's in pristine condition, and I said, hey, why not a short one? See how an author can cover the history of Russia in this small little thing. There's that. And then, as well as a short history of Russia, I also saw, not far away from it, because I'm reading, for those again who have seen my previous videos, I did read last month this book by Michael Burleigh. It's called Earthly Powers. The subtitle is The Clash of Religion and Politics in Europe, from the French Revolution to the Great War. So this has a lot about Russia, so this will be helpful, but it's also got a lot about Germany. And Germany is very complex for me, because it's only very, very late in its history that it actually unified and became a German nation. And then it's very regional, and then you've got a Protestant north and a Catholic south, and then there's the whole Austria question, and it's complex. It's complex. So I found this, and I said I'll go for it. It might help me just better understand German history, because I read this last month, and I'm reading I don't have it at hand, but it's the sequel to this basically, which is called Sacred Causes, and that goes very deep into Soviet Bolshevism and then German Nazism. So I found this. It's the second edition of A Concise History of Germany. Not very exciting. Uh, it's by Mary Fulbrook. So again, it's got maps. It's just very, again, concise, very small, but hopefully just help me to understand German history a little bit better. Again, and it says A Concise History of Germany. It's got um, a little bit about medieval Germany, but it's mostly modern. This is really the 17th century and onward, so modern Germany, and then of course, I'm sure the 20th century, or what led up to the 20th century, will be included in this concise version. But I'm sorry, this is the last book of the haul. I'll wrap this up. I don't know if we ended on a little bit of a maybe not the most exciting finale, but again, that's the first part of my autumn book haul. There's a lot more. There's a lot more books. I think I went a little bit overboard, but I'll leave that for a second part, and perhaps a third and a fourth, maybe a fifth part as well. We'll see. We'll see. I'll figure it out. But until then, BookTube, I'll wrap this up, and I'll say salute.